Welcome to the Through the Lens of Learning podcast. If we haven't met, hello, I'm your host, Dr. Tracy Schroyer. I'll give you 2 words that summarize me to a T: lifelong learner. Join me as I share a bit about my own journey of curiosity, learning, and wonder. You'll also get to hear from some phenomenal individuals on what they're curious about learning and what they have to share too. Are you itching with excitement yet? I am, so let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Through the Lens of Learning. And today I have guest with me, Dr. Adam Bowman. So welcome, Adam.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. So Adam, before we start to dig in, I have a couple questions for you. So if you can just tell the audience a little bit about you, kind of like Adam in a nutshell.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Maybe my wife needs to be on here to do that. So my name is Dr. Adam Bowman. I'm born and raised in Ohio, so I'm in the Ohio area. That's how I've gotten to know Tracy through some of our associations and professional associations. I have a doctorate in personal and organizational psychology. So I'm kind of, for lack of a better word, an industrial organizational psychologist, practitioner. And so I work with organizations, groups, basically learning development, and leadership development. So that's kind of my bread and butter. And I've been doing that for quite a few years. I just kind of consider myself kind of a organizational practitioner, if you will, jack of all trades and sorts.
Jack of all trades is a good description.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that's what I do.
Good. So yeah, you're right. Adam and I met through the Central Ohio Association for Talent Development. So ATD, our national chapter, our local chapter here in Central Ohio. Adam and I attended quite a few different events, and you even lead the leadership development SIG, or special interest group, now. So I'm excited to hear more about that, and I've been able to pop in on those every once in a while.
Yeah.
So Adam, one other question before we start to dig in is, how do you define learning?
Oh, that's a good question. I think probably as I've gone through life, it's been a little different. Probably when I was a kid, learning was terrible. It's something I just had to do. As I got older, it's something I got to do to get a better position. And I think now, as I'm kind of in where I'm at, I think learning is more a couple things. I think learning is about changing behavior. Permanent behavior, right? So it's about getting a job and getting a career, but it's really about, to me, it's changing the way I think, the way I perceive the world, and how I operate in it. So whether that's to give me more freedom, more opportunity, but it's just to change myself. And that's kind of how I view leadership training as well. Is I train, I develop, I change people for the better. And so that to me is what learning is.
So good. I love hearing everybody's perspective and what they see it is. And it totally does. It can change throughout different things that you're going through and the environments that you're in, for sure. So Adam, when you were a young kid, what was it that you thought you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh gosh, if I can remember back that many years. I don't know. I guess I did everything like all other kids did. Fireman, doctor, all these different things. But time when I got out of school or high school, I probably, what I was really into was history. It's probably because that's what I was good at, and I really enjoyed it. So I was going to go to school to do history. I wanted to be a history professor or some sort of doing something with history. Maybe it was in museum curating, something in that nature. So that's kind of what I initially went to school for, was history. And it might have been because I didn't know what else to do at the time. I was good at school. It's what I enjoyed. And my parents were educators. So I kind of even thought about teaching. But I quickly learned I didn't want to deal with kids, after I got there and stuff. So I kind of thought, well, history is where I did. So I did a bachelor's degree in history, like Near Eastern history. And that's what I did. And I was looking to go into like a graduate school. And I talked to a friend that did older man I knew, and he had done it. And we were kind of mentored me a little bit. And he had a graduate degree in that. And so I talked to him, and then I knew somebody else that had a PhD in it and wasn't working in the field. And they're like, man, it's very competitive because these these types of degrees aren't as valuable and it's just less and less work. And then I got married and I said, well, I got to find something. And so I went into work, right? And I said, well, I was kind of tired of school and went into work. And then I started working and workers' comp of all things, right? Like who goes to school to do workers' comp? I got into it because I had an aunt that was there. So I started at Nationwide in Columbus. I was at Ohio State University. I did part-time. So I stuck on there. I got married. So I was like, well, I got to work now. I got a family. And so, but I said, this isn't what I wanted to do. So of all things, I went into conflict resolution. I got a degree in conflict resolution. And because that was just another field, I took a class years ago, and it was a peace studies class in psychology. And I loved it, but there just wasn't a degree in it at the time or anything. So I thought, well, I found this degree in conflict resolution that they, could open up things to do in mediation and maybe down to law school. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I went to Antioch College here in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and I got a master's in that.
I didn't even know that was a degree.
Yeah, right.
That's really cool.
And it's popped up quite a bit now. So there's a lot of different types so there's a few schools that have it now. Pepperdine, I think, has it. There's a few others that do. And so that's what I did. So I did like mediation work. I worked with companies. I did like court mediations, you name it, divorce mediations. And it's very interesting stuff, as you can imagine. No one likes conflict, but people like other people's conflict. So
that is true.
It's not mine. I'll just sit here and listen and try to figure it out. So then I went into that. And then what I found is I was getting pulled into like employer conflicts and mediations between like employee and employer. And I just started having people asking me questions about it. And then I had a couple partners, and we just went to like all the HR groups in Ohio and just went out and just kind of did like those, for your CEUs, right? Where we give them like things, conflict management, mediation, and for HR. And it just seems like that's where I fell in love with training and development, because I was getting in front of these groups and I was doing this work, and my parents were teachers. So I had this background of teaching, and it just felt like this is where I need to be. So then I kind of was still working my other job in insurance, and I just transitioned from there into training and development. And I just had a lot of people asking me questions about not just mediation, but employer problems and organizational development. And I thought, yeah, I'm not really qualified. I just know conflict, mediation. And so at that point, I made the decision is, you know what, I need to start kind of getting myself pulled more into organizational development with developing people. And because conflict is one of those competencies for leadership. And that really is what kind of pulled me in, just because that's what people kind of was asking me questions for. And it just kind of drawed me into that. And that's probably how my education started. Is I didn't know. If you asked me 20 years ago if I would be here, I'd say, no, there's no way. I don't even like psychology.
The dots did not connect at all.
Yeah, but it's just the paths are always sometimes twisty and windy, and just keeping my eyes and ears open to what is presented to me, and then trying out. And then there's things I tried, it didn't work, and it just led this way. And that to me is how I got to where I was. And so I went to school and said, well, I could go back and do another master's. I looked at a couple of master's programs, but I said, you know what? I've always wanted to do a doctorate. I had kids and a wife at this time. And so this is probably, 20 years out from college. And so I said, I'm going to go ahead and do the doctorate. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all the way. And that's how I got into it, right? I found a program that worked for me and my lifestyle and what I did. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do, I knew I didn't want to do research. I knew I didn't want to go work at a university full time, although I do teach. I guess that we all do at some point. But I wanted to do practice. I wanted to do what I was doing in practicing. So I got a doctorate instead of a PhD. And mine's more practice oriented. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a hybrid between a PhD and practitioner, so I kind of play in both fields. I did a dissertation just like a PhD did and all that, but at the end of the day, it was about focusing on applied practice, and that's what I do. So I consider myself more of a scholar practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
and I practice, and it's been great ever since. So I don't know. You asked me one question, I got all.
See, I kind of
Yeah. So I hope I
myself.
got to where you wanted to go ultimately, or I didn't just throw you all off.
No, that's great.
But
So,
go
ahead.
But I think that's important to understand. It's what most people. So, like, I had a brother who was a doctor, an oncologist, and he knew from high school he wanted to be a medical doctor. And his path from high school, I mean, he got scholarships that paid his whole way through med school, like very
Wow.
unusual. So most people think that's what your education and career path is. You come out of high school, I should already know what I'm going to do, and it should all be there, and I just follow what they tell me, and then I become what I am. And that's just so rare. I think most people, it's more about probably what you did, Tracy. I know your story, mine a little bit. Is just you just kind of go through and you feel, and life takes you in this educational journey. And I think that's probably more of everyone's experience than what my brother had, which is what everybody thinks is the way it is, and it's just not.
Yeah, that's cool if you can go that route, and that's
great.
The right route for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more and more I hear, the more and more I connect, it's with people who have those. It's almost like an uncertain trust too. It's scary as hell.
Yeah, it is, right?
Because you don't know what that next thing looks like, and there's not really an end. It's an ongoing journey.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were looking at different programs to do for the doctorate, what were things that were important to you? I know you said you had a family at that point. Yeah. What were things that you were trying to find in that?
Yeah. So when I talk to people that are looking to get doctorates, I always say, be real clear. Right. And some people may think I talk them out of it. And it's not that I don't talk you out, but I just know there's people that just say, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go and do a doctorate because that's just the next thing to do. And I kind of did that with my master's. I was out of school and I was like, man, this isn't working for me. The only thing I knew was to go back to school. and so I did. And if I would have maybe gone back and told my younger self, I would say that's great, but be a little more focused in terms of what plan or goal you want. I just said, well, this is great. I wasn't the best student. I paid my whole way through. My parents didn't really have much to help me with. I was the oldest of 6 kids. So, it's like 18, you're like, great, gone because your brother needs the room, And not to say my parents were, not good parents. They were really good parents. They were teachers and educators, but it was just one of those things that was just, I just had to make my way, and that's fine. It worked. It was great. And so I just kind of was like, what do I do? And my parents were educators and teachers, so all I knew was education. So I just jumped in. And in some ways it was kind of, maybe I was delaying my making decisions. And so I always tell people, if you're looking to do a doctorate, it's great, but be clear about it. Know what it is you want to do. And if it's just to go to because I have nothing else to do or no prospects, you might want to think again, or at least come up with a plan. So what I did is I told my wife, I said, look, if I do this, I'm doing the plan this time. And I looked at my needs. I had 2 kids. Well, 1 kid at a time. I was married, and so I had bills. They had to be flexible.
Yep.
So that was the thing. It had to be flexible. So I looked online. I found a program that was very flexible. I went to Oro University, which is a Jewish university, and they got bricks and mortar law schools, medical schools. But this was a new program. They were putting their psychology on there to do online, and they had a good reputation. So that was another thing that was good for me. And it was just, they worked with adults. And that's just all I can say is
it's huge.
Every class was the same. It had the same ending, the same frame. I could set my schedule to the same thing every quarter. So I knew Tuesday nights was school night. Monday nights was school night. Paper writing was was Thursday or Friday, right? And I
Yep.
had 2 papers a term, so I could just build up and I just keep that schedule. So consistency works around my schedule, what I do, how I do it, and it was a plan because I knew at the end of the plan I wanted to be a practitioner, and this program was going to get me there. It taught me how to think and how to do research and how to put it in practice more than it did, let's say, topics like subject matters of emotional intelligence or whatever psychology has to offer.
Right. Right. So when you finished your program
Mm-hmm.
and you're still in the workforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you end up doing from there? Because I know I could tell you from finishing mine, I thought the next day I'd get like the door would be knocked down with opportunities, and that is totally not what happens.
It doesn't happen,
You
does it?
have to really seek out what is the next thing. So what did you really do after you're done with your program and the next thing that you moved into?
A great question, because you're right. I mean, because those recruiters will tell you at school, oh, you'll have every opportunity knocking down your door. And to the extent you do, but it's not, yeah. So I was in this program and I was learning to do, and I learned development. So I had already got myself in the field. And I've been with Sedgwick, who I currently employed with, and they do workers' comp, TPA for Fortune 100 companies. And I had gotten into the train development. So I was doing onboarding. I was getting my, I don't know, I guess, what's the word? Just getting my chops in training.
Mm.
And so even though I did training and stuff before, I just really did my chops. So it was onboarding systems and getting people in their jobs. And I kid you not, I probably did my first 2-3 years. I mean, I was training back to back, 6-week classes, 6 weeks classes, 40 hours a week. And I was doing 2,500 hours of training a year. I mean, it's crazy. If you're a trainer, you know. And so as I was doing this degree, I started to make some space for me there and just said to my manager, who was just so good, and say, hey, why don't I do some stuff for the managers? Let me just do some training for leadership. I'm taking this degree, and they're like, yeah, sure, try a few of them. So then I got in front of some senior vice presidents at one of their retreats and did something, and I did really well. I did on conflict of all things, right? And so I did really well. And then once I graduated, because they created a position to say, we want you to take over our leadership development.
Wow.
And it was a whole new thing. And I was just fortunate because the senior vice presidents, and they saw the need for this, and they made a space. And so they paid me a better salary. And I've been doing that full time since I've been out. So I developed a program, and I'm doing it in the company. And so that's a good point. I started creating my opportunities while I was in school. And I just, almost like an entrepreneur, I just started, peddling my services to whoever it was, whether it was free or going to like SHRM meetings or ATD meetings and saying, hey, let me present, let me do my thing, let me make connections. Yep. And so I did that, and I've been doing that since. But I also started doing some consulting work on the side. And that's just been through connections and meeting people and shaking some bushes here and there. And yeah, but the point is it didn't fall off a tree, I guess, for me, right?
Right. That smack you in the face. Yeah, I like that too, because I think I feel like I learned it a little bit later in the game, but being willing to pilot, experiment, can I try this, like within your organization? And when you open that door to, can I try it versus, hey, I want to do this, and leadership feeling like it's permanent, they're more willing to allow that and see where it goes from there. And in your case, and in many other cases I've heard, it works out really positively. You're passionate about it, you're invested in it, and look, it turned into a whole role for you. So that's huge.
And the thing is, Tracy, if it didn't, I have it on my resume.
Right.
So it's more than having a degree, but I got the on resume. I can say, look, I did this. Yeah. So they just didn't have a spot. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to get into my own program or help somebody's develop a program. So I've done it. And so if anything, it's a win-win. Even if it doesn't turn out anything for you, you got some resume experience to go along with that degree.
Yes.
And that's important too.
Yeah, and so many people I know even ask when they're putting together like a portfolio if they need
Mhm.
to, like, how do I get experience if nobody's going to give me a job?
Oh,
And there are so many ways you can get experience without having an actual job
yeah.
in that area of focus. So those kinds
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah, I did that. I went to these organizations, and Tracy, because you've been in them, they would, if I had someone come to me say, "Hey, can I present your leadership?" If it was a leadership, I'd say absolutely, because I don't have to do it next month. Or
Yeah.
I'm always looking for people. So anybody out there that's looking, let me know. But
Yes.
yeah, because that's what we do. And
Hmm.
most people are looking, and you can go out to like LinkedIn and catch fire, and there's volunteer opportunities to do coaching or to work whatever your field is. You'll find people who will take your services for free to build your resume.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, they're out there. You just have to sometimes be a little creative.
Right. Right. Yeah. And there was one instance, I think it was earlier this year, I think it was this year, you had presented to the leadership development special interest group
Mhm.
for our Central Ohio ATD. And you talked about the analogy of is it the sailboat?
Yeah, the sailboat.
And leadership development. And
Mhm.
I was taking pictures of the screen. You even sent us afterwards what that was. And I made a note. I'm like, I need to have Adam come talk either, later when I have this podcast or, something else for an organization to talk
Yeah.
about this analogy because it was so deep and it was so rich and it was so true.
Mhm.
And so even just you speaking to that small group, there's a lot of opportunities that could come out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've done that a couple times since then because
Yeah.
it's a good analogy. And I mean, it wasn't mine. It's just something that I had
Right.
from a source that I pay for content,
Yep.
and I've used it a few times and kind of tweaked it on my own. But yeah, it's anybody. I mean, you can do it, and
Right.
it just takes that. Yeah, it does take a little hustle. I'm not going to say it doesn't,
Yep.
but those opportunities are there, and that's how you start to slowly build, and you'll just build momentum, and and I trust me, I'm the same way. It doesn't build fast enough for me, but as I would like, but it's just keeping that pace and just knowing it's more of a marathon, and
Yep.
and start it while you're in your class, whether you're in a master's, a bachelor's, whatever. Just start now, so that when you get out, the network's built, or at least partially built.
Yep.
Um, so I have a brother-in-law that did this. He was in law school, and what he did for a whole year, I kid you not, is he interviewed people in the particular job, and he wanted to do something very unique. It was he wanted to work at Metro, public transportation in Washington D.C. of
Wow.
all things, policy. So he, for a year, he just found people on LinkedIn, and he would interview them, and then talk about their job. How did you get into it? How did you get into it? And he had always finish with the last question, which was, "Who should I talk to next?" And he did 52 interviews. I kid you not. He did a lot of them.
Wow.
And then about a year after it's done, the director, which he had gotten in contact with of the DC Metro, called and offered him a job. They created a position for him in the exact area he wanted to do. Right. So he graduated and maybe worked a year out doing law he didn't really care for. And he got in a position. And that's what he did. He goes, I didn't really interview. I just asked people. I started down a LinkedIn list, and I
Yep.
introduced myself, and I talked to everyone once a week. Now, may not have to do that many, but it built a network for him. And then,
Right.
like, we need this position. I remembered talking to you, and I remembered my friends talking to you, and this is what you want to do. And he got a 6-figure job offer from it. It's pretty
Wow.
cool, right?
Yeah, so many people wait until there's a job out
Mhm.
there. They can go and say, okay, who's connected this? And you don't know when there's going to be a job that's for you. You don't know that maybe there isn't a specific job for you and it has to be created.
Mhm.
It's laying that foundation early and not being afraid to put yourself out there, which I can tell you so many of my younger years, even in my early graduate program, I was so shy and
Yeah.
I did not want to put myself out there. So even being part of Central Ohio ATD has been really helpful for me because it puts me into rooms with
Yeah.
people who are willing to talk and share. And most people, almost everybody, they're okay with sharing their story, with sharing
Yes.
where they work or what they're doing, what they're passionate about. So
Absolutely.
it's asking the questions and it's not even having to say a whole lot about yourself. Like, just get curious with other people. And I love to hear that story.
Yeah.
Just being curious and asking those questions.
And it's true. And the thing is, Tracy, if someone rejects you, then that's not the person you need to talk to anyway. They did you a favor. Look, people who are high performance, people who are good at what they do, they're connectors and they help people because that's what they know what it takes to get there. And if they're in that if they're givers and they're in that position, they're going to help out. If they say no, then they're not the person you want because they're probably not in a position to even help you anyway. Yeah. So if anything,
still
it just
stings a little, but
it's them out. You can say, okay, that one I know I don't. I'll move on to the next. He or she was probably not the person I needed to talk to anyway, because if they're not going to help me, then they probably don't have a big network or they've never been through that process themselves. So yeah, that's what I tell people. Don't worry, they weren't the person that was right for you.
Right.
So and I know that takes a little faith, especially when you start to kind of say no, but.
Right. So Adam, now that you're done with school, you're in the workforce, you're doing a lot of great things in the role that you have and outside of the company. What are some things you do as far as like, and maybe an informal education, building your skill set, learning? What are some things that you're getting into with that?
Yeah. So I do a lot. I don't know. It just becomes a lifestyle of learning. And Tracy, you know that.
Yep. I
mean, I was a poor student. And here I am now. If you would have told me in high school, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't the best either. I probably would like, you're kidding me. I'm not going to do 30 years later, you're still going to be in school or doing these things. But I do. So right now, actually, I jumped into a program. I'm in a certificate program at Huntington University for coaching, like leadership coaching. Awesome. So it's something that I already did. And I did a lot, but I'm just starting to see now that they're looking for a lot. When I look in the field, I'm starting to see they want, I guess, certified coaches, and what that means, and is still like, who knows? Because
could mean different things to everybody.
Yeah, right. Because there's no license in the state like a psychologist. Well, that means you do A, B, C, and D. Anybody can call themselves a coach, but I'm starting to see now a lot of organizations are like, well, IFC, International Coaching Federation, the BCCI does a credential. We're going to start putting our faith in them. We'll just start saying your IFC certified, certificate or credential. And so what I'm doing is trying to work towards that, right? Because what it will do is, one, it builds more confidence in me as a coach, because I've been coaching, but now I'm like, I've been doing this. I guess I am pretty decent at this, right? I'm not screwing people up for the rest of their lives. So it builds confidence, and I've learned developing skills, and I'm going to have a certification credential when I'm done. And honestly, it's also taught me about myself. If anything, it's just skills that I use in life: how to talk to people, how to listen, how to ask good questions, and how to be curious. How to have empathy and relate. So again, it was a very strategic plan. I've been putting it off for quite a while because I'm just like, the doctorate's done. I'm not ready to get back in.
Yep.
So that's what I do. Other things that I do a lot of reading. I read a lot. I do a lot of podcasts on my downtime when I walk. Those types of things of informal reading. And I talk to people like you who just know so much about other things and different perspectives. You join ATD, you join SHRM or whatever professional group, and you attend those meetings and you just learn. So it doesn't have to be a test all the time. It's just you learn.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. So Adam, before we wrap up, anything, I feel like this has gone so quickly. Anything else you want to share before we start to wrap up?
No, I think you hit it, everything. You did such a good job, Tracy.
I just asked a couple questions.
You're doing so good at the show. I've been watching. It's great. But I just think it's just stay curious. I had one of my deans at my doctorate school. He said, the one thing you need to do with your doctorate is to stay curious. Just stay curious, and just look for opportunities and stay curious about things. And I think that leads to learning, right? It doesn't mean it has to be a degree or anything. It's just staying curious, and that helps you to consider different possibilities. And I always like to say, I like to assume that I'm wrong, because I probably am most of the time. And it just lets me to stay open to other possibilities, because there's some things I want to be wrong about, because it means something's better than how I see it. Staying open to that being wrong, and not in a sense of losing my confidence, but just knowing that maybe there's another way of seeing things. And that just opens a lot for me in terms of learning and staying humble.
Yeah.
Right? There's always more to learn. There's always another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the world the whole way. We don't even see the world the way it really is. We see it the way our brain makes it.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind, and always looking to expand that world a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. So Adam, if somebody wants to connect with you or follow you on your journey and what you're doing now, what you're doing next, how would you recommend that they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I always have something going on. You can follow me at LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/IN/Adam D, as in Dalton, my middle name, Bowman, Adam D. Bowman. You can find me there. If you ever want to talk or just connect, I'm always open to that, helping anybody out. I do coaching on the sides, and so whatever. I mean, you don't just reach out to me. I'd be glad to talk to anybody. So I'm pretty good about that. So.
Yes, and especially when it comes to conflict resolution and leadership development.
Any of that stuff, or just in general, right?
In general, yes.
School. I mean, I
yes.
teach at a few places, or just anything I can help you with, I'd be glad. And if I can, I'll find somebody, I'll point you in a direction to somebody that may help you as well.
Yes, so, love that. Love that. Thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on this episode. Definitely, we have some things in the future that maybe we're going to talk about and think about how we can partner together even more.
Absolutely. It'll be great. So I love this. I love what you're doing. I know you're helping people. You're changing lives. So what better thing to do, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. And we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
This podcast is brought to you by Upskill University. You can find more information about how to become part of the Upskill community for free, this and other episodes of the Through the Lens of Learning podcast, and more on the website at www.upskilluniversity.com. Thanks again for listening, and have an awesome day.